Well, between an aggressively expanding China, a tumultuous Middle East and a resurgent Russia, Africa is often an afterthought when it comes to U.S. policy, which makes it no surprise that it's taken U.S. Secretary of State, that's Mike Pompeo, almost 2 years before setting foot in Sub-Saharan Africa. So what can he say to win over the continent? And further north, Egypt has officially passed 100 million people. But are there enough resources to go around? Plus, a ban on bikes in bustling Lagos. And we've got all those details on this, plus more news and views from the African continent coming up over the next half hour. So, Jumbo, Dumela and Sawubona. I am Dumela Mototwane, and this is #Africa. The United States' top diplomat has made his first official trip to Sub-Saharan Africa since taking office almost 2 years ago. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo traveled to Senegal to meet with President Macky Sall and then on to Angola and Ethiopia. Now, he's been promoting U.S. business as the world's biggest economy battles China for economic influence on the African continent.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo kicked off his first tour of Africa in Senegal on Saturday, 15 February, where he met with President Macky Sall to discuss building on security ties and economic cooperation, calling Senegal an anchor of democracy and linchpin of security for West Africa. High on the agenda in Dakar was the $106 million in security assistance that Washington has pledged since 2014, as well as an expected reduction of U.S. forces from Africa. The visit comes 3 weeks after France warned the U.S. against these cuts in West Africa, where groups linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State are expanding their foothold. On Monday, Pompeo was touting American business in Angola, increasingly wary of China's economic influence on the African continent.
It's one of the reasons I wanted to be here in Angola. One of the reasons I made my first trip to Africa, to come to this place with enormous opportunity.
Angola is Sub-Saharan Africa's third largest economy and second largest oil producer. U.S. corporations such as ExxonMobil and Chevron have significant stakes there. But despite those investments, the bulk of Angola's oil is destined for China, which also holds the lion's share of Angola's foreign debt. The Trump administration accuses China of predatory lending in Africa, where Beijing has loaned governments billions of dollars in exchange for access to natural resources. But some African governments question Donald Trump's own commitment to the continent after the White House tightened visa restrictions on various African countries last month. On Tuesday, Pompeo was met by Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and other officials in Addis Ababa for the last leg of the African tour. Their talks are expected to focus on security concerns ahead of Ethiopian elections this year, investment opportunities as Abiy opens up the economy to foreign investment, and a dispute the United States has been trying to mediate between Ethiopia and Egypt over Ethiopia's giant Blue Nile hydropower dam.
Our objective, the United States objective, and I think the objective of Ethiopia's leadership, Egypt's leadership, and the Sudanese leadership is to come to an accommodation that works for each of the three countries, to teach the peoples of each of those three nations fairly. I think there's a solution to that will work, but our mission set is not to impose a solution on this, but rather to get the three countries to come together around a solution that each of them acknowledges works for the concerns of all three nations.
Hundreds demonstrated in the Malawian capital of Lilongwe just last week, calling for the chairwoman of the country's electoral commission to resign. Now, this comes after the Constitutional Court had nullified last May's presidential elections because of widespread irregularities. Well, commissioners have appealed the ruling and are refusing to step down.
Hundreds of demonstrators gathered in Lilongwe calling for Jane Ansah, chairwoman of Malawi's Electoral Commission, or MEC, to step down. The protests after Malawi's top court overturned last year's presidential election results were called by Malawi's Human Rights Defenders Coalition, led by Timothy Mtembo.
We are shutting down MEC offices as a symbol that we are firing Jane Ansah and her team, so that new commissioners should come and start preparing for elections.
Last week, the Constitutional Court ordered new elections, citing widespread, systematic and grave irregularities in the vote last May. Ansah has been at the centre of protests disputing the election result, but allegedly declaring President Peter Mutharika the winner, while disputes over the outcome were unresolved. Opposition supporters, who were escorted to MEC's offices by soldiers, accused Mutharika of cronyism and failing to tackle corruption in his first term.
As a peace-loving Malawian, I've decided to participate in these demonstrations because I believe that this country is for us all and not for a few greedy individuals.
Mutharika and the Electoral Commission have filed a formal appeal against the court's ruling. Malawi is only the second country after Kenya in 2017 to nullify a presidential election.
The traffic in Lagos already has a bad reputation, but new efforts to improve the gridlock have some Nigerians getting all sweaty. And we've got those details after this break.